Okay, in today's video we're going to look at substitution, but with negative numbers thrown in. So just a little reminder about what negative numbers do when we're working out equations. We've got the four operations which you're all aware of: addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. Okay, so what happens if we have two of these signs or operations next to each other without a number in between? So instead of having 2 plus 2, we have 2 plus negative 2. What do? We've got two signs or two operations right next to each other. Well, I don't know if you can remember, but there is a rule that we use. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at now. Alright then, let's have a look at this. Let's start off with addition. If you have addition next to another addition sign, I'll put them in brackets there so you can distinguish between the two, then you always end up with addition. Okay? If you have an addition sign that's next to a negative sign, then that changes to a negative. Okay? Now you can interchange both those, so we could say what happens if there's a negative sign with a plus sign? Well, the same result happens. You have a negative sign after that. Alright? Now let's have a look at what happens when we put a positive or an addition next to... oh no, 1 second, that's not quite right. One moment. There we are. Okay then, what happens if we're saying multiplication and division? Right? What happens if we have a negative value multiplied by a positive value? Well, the answer will always be a negative value. Okay? What happens if we have a negative value multiplied by another negative value? Well, that actually becomes a positive value. Okay? And as before, these are interchangeable. So if you've got a positive times by a negative, that's still a negative sign. What about division? Alright, a negative divided by a positive. Well, as you can see, it leaves you with a negative symbol, or a negative value. If you have a positive divided by a positive, then that leaves you with a positive as well. I don't know if you can see the rule here, or a pattern, but anything with like signs means you end up with a positive. Anything with unlike signs, you end up with a negative. Okay? I just want to bring you back to the first thing that we did. This positive and negative, when they're next to each other, this only applies, as we said before, when the numbers or the values don't break up the operations. So you can see here that 2 plus 2, if I was to put a negative symbol here and say negative 2 plus 2, we don't change the signs. You use your number line just like you've always done. It's only when we have the operations next to each other do we have to think, right, what do we need to do? We have to use this rule here. So I'll leave that up while we do some examples. Alright then, let's have a look at this. P plus Q. So remember, we're still doing substitution, so we're going to give you the values of P. P is equal to 9, and Q is equal to negative 4. Alright then, let's just change the colour. So, let's substitute in like we know how to do. So P is 9 plus negative 4. Okay, now I've put the negative symbol slightly higher than the addition symbol, just so you don't get confused, and it's a nice way to break them up. We try and put the negative symbol a little bit higher. You might also see it in brackets. It means exactly the same thing. It's just trying to show you that they're different. Alright then, so we've got 9 plus negative 4. We've got two symbols next to each other without a number in between. So we have to use our rule box here. So a positive and a negative, that becomes a negative. So you rewrite the sum. 9 take away 4. And we can do that, it's nice and simple. 5. Okay? Alright then, let's try another one. Change the colour. How about this? P take away Q. Well, what's P? We know P is 9. Take away Q. Q is negative 4. I'm going to put it in brackets and keep putting it in brackets so you get used to it. 9 take away negative 4. Again, we've got two operations or two signs without a number in between. So we go to our box. Now remember we said these are interchangeable. So we've got a plus and a plus. Well, you can also say a negative and a negative will give you a plus. Remember, like signs give you a plus. Like signs give you a plus. So 9 can be rewritten 9 plus 4. That gives you 13. Okay? Nice and easy. Let's have a look at one more example. How about this? We're going to add another variable here. We're going to say r is equal to 2. R is equal to 2. Okay, so here's what I want you to substitute in for q divided by, or q over r. Q over r. So we can do that. Let's put them in. We know q is negative 4 and over r, which is 2. Okay, so we've got, go to our rule box, a negative divided by a positive. That, an unlike sign, a negative and a positive, are going to end up giving us a negative sign overall. So, we work it out as normal. What's 4 divided by 2? Well, that's 2. But we know the sign is going to be negative. So we've got to put that in, negative 2. Let's try one more before we end the video, and you can practice these yourselves. Alright then, let's have a look at r divided by s. I have to tell you what s is. We'll add this in. S is equal to negative 1. Alright then. So r, what's r? We know r is 2 over, or divided by, negative 1. Again, we've got a positive, because you know 2 is a positive integer, divided by a negative. So let's go to our rule box. A positive divided by a negative. Remember, these are interchangeable. The best thing to remember is they are unlike signs. So they're not the same, so you're going to end up with a negative value. Okay then, so 2 divided by 1 we know is 2, but it's a negative value, so we've got to put that in, negative 2. Alright then, copy down that rule box, so it'll help you when you're revising or when you're doing the exercise that I'm setting for you, and have a go at the ones on Edmodo, okay?